Okay, so we're still on the quadratic formula because what's going to happen is you can't always do the square root like we have been. So far life has been so nice because the square root actually happens, but sometimes it doesn't. So let me show you what I mean. All right, so with the quadratic formula, we plug in 0 for y, right? We learned that we're doing the x-intercepts and y is 0. And then we use our formula, x equals, and then we've got negative, b is negative 2 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so negative 2 in a bubble squared. I make sure I do a bubble so I square the negative. Minus 4 times a, here is negative 1, and c is a positive 5, all over 2 times a is negative 1. Okay, then we go ahead and simplify. So I've got 2 negatives on my 2 right there, so that's a positive 2. Plus or minus the square root. Negative 2 squared, if I square the negative also, I get a positive 4. And then as I multiply all this together, I have 2 negatives, so that's a plus. 4 times 1 times 5 is 20, all over negative 2. All right, maybe you can see it happening now. Keep on going. Remember, we can't square root until we get one number inside the square root. So we add 4 and 20, we get 24, all over negative 2. Now you'll see I can't square root 24. If we do our simplifying for square roots, yeah, whatever, fine, we can take out a 4 and there's a 6 left, yada yada. But sometimes it's actually best to get ourselves down to decimals, sometimes. And so that's what we're going to work on today is what if we wanted to get down to decimals? So what we're going to do now that we've got this square root down to just one number is I'm going to split it up into 2 problems. Okay, so I'm going to split it up where I've got 2 plus the square root of 24 all over negative 2, and then 2 minus. Remember that plus or minus means that there's 2 things going on, so we go ahead and do that. Then we're actually going to get out our calculator and do this, so you need to have a calculator handy for this. This time in this video I actually do have a calculator handy. So we go ahead, and that's a mess, plug this in the calculator. Again, follow my helpful hints here and do this part first. So I square root the 24 first. Now if I know how to use my calculator, that helps. All right, so now I got 4.89. Now in front of it is a plus, so I don't need to worry about changing the sign, and I'm going to add on the 2. And then I hit enter, and now I've got 6.89 and so on, and I'm going to divide that by negative 2. And my answer is negative 3.449, so let's just go 45. We usually go about 2 decimal places when we do this. Make sure you round properly though. Then I got to do the other one, so once again I get the square root of 24. I get 4.899. In case I lost you there, I'm over on the second problem now. I did the square root of 24. But now guess what? That's negative, so I need to do a negative of that number. And then I need to add on 2, so I'll add 2. All right, now I've got negative 2.89, so on. Now I've got the top. I had hit enter so that I saw that. And I'm going to divide by negative 2. And the answer I got there is 1.4, and again I'm going to round to 5. Now, I actually have something really bad on the screen here that I need to talk about. These equal signs, okay? The equal signs is not technically true because if you remember, we just talked about rounding it to 5. We rounded our answers because these decimals go on forever. Remember the word irrational? When a square root goes on forever and ever, like these ones do, is called irrational. And so when we do this, we actually call it the approximate answer. And so a lot of times we have to use these little squiggly equal signs to say, it's pretty much that, but it's not exactly. And so the squiggly equal signs just let us know that that's really what's going on. Now, if you take and graph this on the xy axis, graph the parabola, you're going to see that you have 2 spots that you cross the x-axis. So I'm just going to remind you about that. Remember, when we're graphing a parabola, it crosses twice, usually. Sometimes once, sometimes none. But when we do that, we're finding when y equals 0, okay? So you might get different questions. For example, one of them might be, find the x-intercept. And that's all great and good if you know what you're doing. And so what if you have 2x squared minus 3x equals 8? You guys, what they're telling you to do is they're just telling you find it when y equals 0 for the x-intercept. Now here, I don't have y equals 0. I've got an 8 here. That's kind of awkward. So what we're going to do is we're going to move the 8 over so that it goes with the rest of them. So we have 2x squared minus 3x minus 8 equals 0. So your goal, your first goal, is always so that you have a 0 right there. Then you go through and do your quadratic formula. Okay? Or if they tell you to find the x-intercept, but then they give you y equals x squared plus 3x minus 8, well, then what you have to do, remember, the x-intercept is that y equals 0. So then you've got to replace your y with 0. So then you rewrite it, and then go ahead and do your quadratic formula to find those x-intercepts. There's probably 2. If there's not, then there's going to be 1 or none. And so I'm not going to make you, I'm not going to sit here and do a bunch of them for you. You can go through and watch that last example over and over again if you want. But otherwise, this is what you're going to be working on in class, is getting it when it's decimals. So make sure you have a calculator handy. Bring your calculator to class, please, because you're going to need it, and I don't have enough.